Dhafra Air Base, United Arab Emirates. March 17, 2026, 3:47 a.m. local time. 18 Iranian ballistic missiles impact across a 2.3 square kilometer military installation housing 5,000 American personnel, 80 aircraft, and the operational headquarters for U.S. Central Command's air operations across the entire Middle East. Not a probing attack, not a warning shot. A calculated strike designed to achieve three objectives simultaneously: destroy America's premier forward operating base in the Gulf, prove that U.S. forces are no longer safe on Arab soil, and force the UAE into a choice it has spent 50 years trying to avoid. 17 of the 18 missiles hit their targets. The base's Patriot air defense batteries intercepted one out of 18. The other 17 struck runways, aircraft shelters, fuel storage facilities, maintenance hangars, and the base operations center that coordinates every American combat sortie from the Mediterranean to Afghanistan. 14 American personnel confirmed dead, 43 wounded, 6 F-35A fighter aircraft destroyed on the ground, 11 more damaged. The base's primary runway cratered in 7 locations. And the fuel farm, the massive storage facility containing 80 million gallons of JP-8 jet fuel, burning with fires visible from space. Let's talk about what Dhafra actually is. Because most coverage describes it as an air base. That's technically accurate and completely inadequate. Dhafra is the logistics and operational nerve center for American air power across 3 active conflict zones: every surveillance flight over Yemen, every strike package into Syria, every reconnaissance mission monitoring Iranian naval movements in the Strait of Hormuz, every aerial refueling operation that extends the range of carrier-based aircraft. All of it runs through Dhafra. The base doesn't just host aircraft. It hosts the command infrastructure, the intelligence processing systems, the maintenance facilities, and the fuel supplies that make sustained air operations possible. When Iran hit Dhafra, they didn't attack a base. They attacked the central node in a network that cannot function without it. The missiles used were Khorramshahr 4 medium-range ballistic missiles. Range 2,000 kilometers. Payload 1,800 kilograms. Speed during terminal phase Mach 8. Circular error probable, the radius within which the missile will land 50% of the time, less than 10 meters. That level of precision means Iran wasn't aiming at the base. Iran was aiming at specific buildings, specific aircraft, specific fuel tanks. And the strike pattern confirms it. The impacts weren't random, they were sequenced. First wave targeted air defense radars and Patriot batteries. Second wave hit the runway and taxiways. Third wave struck aircraft shelters and the fuel farm. This wasn't saturation bombardment hoping to hit something valuable. This was a target list, executed with the precision of a surgical strike. Intelligence assessments after the attack revealed something more disturbing than the strike itself. Iran had precise coordinates for every critical facility on the base: the fuel farm's exact GPS location, the specific aircraft shelters housing F-35s rather than older F-16s, the exact position of Patriot radar arrays. That level of targeting data doesn't come from satellite imagery alone. It comes from sustained intelligence collection over months, possibly years. Electronic surveillance of base communications, human intelligence from contractor personnel with access to facility layouts, commercial satellite imagery combined with signal intelligence that tracked which hangars had the most encrypted radio traffic indicating high-value assets. Iran knew what was at Dhafra, where it was located, and when it would be most vulnerable. The strike wasn't opportunistic. It was the culmination of an intelligence operation that the UAE and U.S. counterintelligence completely failed to detect. Here's the technical detail that should terrify every air defense planner. Dhafra's Patriot batteries detected the incoming missiles 180 seconds before impact. 3 minutes. The system calculated trajectories, designated threats, and launched interceptors. Standard procedure. The procedure worked exactly as designed for one missile. The interceptor and the incoming Khorramshahr collided at 35,000 feet. Threat neutralized. For the other 17 missiles, the interceptors missed. Not because the Patriot system malfunctioned, because the missiles maneuvered during their terminal approach. Small course corrections, 3 degrees left, 5 degrees right, executed in the final 30 seconds of flight. Each maneuver meant the missile was no longer where the Patriot's computer predicted it would be. And when the closing speed is Mach 8, being wrong by 3 degrees means missing by half a kilometer. The economic mathematics of this attack are brutal. Each Khorramshahr 4 missile cost approximately $800,000 to produce. 18 missiles, $14.4 million total. The cost of the American assets destroyed? 6 F-35A aircraft at $110 million each. That's $660 million. Add the damaged aircraft, estimate $500 million in repair costs. Add the fuel that's still burning, $200 million. Add the runway repair, base reconstruction, replacement of destroyed equipment, $300 million minimum. Iran spent $14.4 million. America lost over $1.6 billion in a single night. That's a cost exchange ratio of 111 to 1. The attacker spent $1 to destroy $101 of the defender's assets. Economically, this is not sustainable for the defender. Mathematically, Iran can repeat this attack 50 times before reaching the cost of what America lost in one attack. But the real damage isn't the aircraft or the fuel, it's the operational capability those assets enabled. Al-Dhafra hosted the 380th Air Expeditionary Wing, the unit responsible for air superiority and strike operations, across Central Command's area of responsibility. With the base damaged, those operations stop. Not reduced, stopped. You cannot fly combat missions from a base with a cratered runway. You cannot maintain aircraft without functioning hangars. You cannot refuel jets when the fuel farm is on fire. American air operations across the entire region just went from continuous coverage to zero capability in the time it takes 18 missiles to fall from the sky. The UAE's government issued a statement 6 hours after the attack. The statement condemned Iran's violation of Emirati sovereignty, expressed solidarity with the United States, reaffirmed the UAE's commitment to regional stability, and then, in the final paragraph, announced that the UAE would be reviewing the security arrangements that permit foreign military forces to operate from Emirati territory. That last sentence is the only one that matters, because what it actually says, in language carefully calibrated to avoid panic, is that the UAE is considering whether hosting American forces is worth the risk of becoming a permanent Iranian target. The calculation the UAE is making right now is straightforward. American forces on UAE soil provide security guarantees against external threats. But American forces on UAE soil also make the UAE a target for Iranian retaliation when America strikes Iranian interests. As long as Iranian retaliation was limited to proportional responses that didn't threaten vital UAE infrastructure, the arrangement worked. Iran just proved that limitation no longer exists. Iran hit a UAE air base, destroyed American assets, killed American personnel, and demonstrated the capability to do it again whenever they choose. The UAE now has to decide if the American security guarantee is valuable enough to justify the risk that Iran will expand targeting to include Emirati oil facilities, ports, desalination plants, and financial centers. Here's what makes that calculation impossible. If the UAE asks American forces to leave, the UAE loses its security guarantor and becomes vulnerable to Iranian coercion. If the UAE allows American forces to stay, the UAE becomes a legitimate military target in a conflict between the United States and Iran. Both options lead to strategic vulnerability. The only question is which vulnerability the UAE prefers. Vulnerability to Iranian pressure without American protection, or vulnerability to Iranian attack because of American presence. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain are all making the same calculation right now. Each of them hosts American military forces. Each of them just watched Iran strike a UAE base with precision missiles that air defenses could not stop. Each of them is asking whether their bases are next. And each of them is receiving private communications from Iranian officials explaining, in terms that leave no room for misinterpretation, what will happen if they continue allowing American forces to use their territory for operations against Iran. The attack on Al-Dhafra wasn't designed to destroy the base. It was designed to make hosting American forces unacceptably risky for Gulf monarchies. And the evidence suggests it's working. Kuwait's government quietly informed U.S. Central Command that overflights of Kuwaiti airspace for strike missions into Iran would require case-by-case approval rather than blanket authorization. Qatar requested that American forces at Al Udeid Air Base limit flight operations to defensive missions only. Bahrain suggested that the U.S. Fifth Fleet reduce the visibility of American naval presence in Manama. These aren't formal expulsions. They're incremental restrictions that accomplish the same goal, making it progressively harder for American forces to operate from Gulf states until the operational capacity is degraded to the point where the bases become irrelevant. The Patriot air defense system that failed to protect Al-Dhafra is the same system deployed at every major American installation in the Middle East: Al Udeid in Qatar, Ali Al Salam in Kuwait, Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, the naval support activity in Bahrain. All of them protected by Patriot batteries. All of them vulnerable to the same maneuvering ballistic missiles that defeated the Patriots at Al-Dhafra. American commanders are now forced to accept that the bases they operate from cannot be effectively defended against the threats Iran has demonstrated the capability and willingness to use. There is no deployed defensive system that reliably intercepts maneuvering ballistic missiles traveling at Mach 8. Patriot can engage them, but the intercept probability drops below 20% when the target maneuvers during terminal approach. THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, engages at higher altitudes and has better success rates against maneuvering threats. But THAAD batteries are limited in number and cannot cover every American base simultaneously. The United States has 7 THAAD batteries worldwide. Central Command's area of responsibility has dozens of installations that would require protection. The defensive capacity does not match the number of targets that need defending. Iran's missile inventory includes over 3,000 ballistic missiles of various ranges and capabilities. Not all of them are as precise as the Khorramshahr 4, but precision isn't required when the target is a 2 square kilometer airbase. Even older missiles with circular error probable of 50 meters will hit something valuable when aimed at a facility packed with aircraft, fuel, and personnel. Iran can sustain a campaign of strikes against American bases in the Gulf for months using existing stockpiles. The United States cannot sustain defensive operations at that pace. Interceptor production rates are too slow. Patriot missiles are manufactured at approximately 500 units per year. THAAD interceptors, 80 per year. At the rate Iran can fire missiles, American interceptor stockpiles would be depleted in weeks. The base repair timeline tells you everything about how badly this strike degraded American capability. The runway requires 4 to 6 weeks to repair. The fuel farm cannot be rebuilt while fires are still burning, and those fires will burn for at least 10 days. The aircraft shelters that were destroyed will take 8 to 12 weeks to reconstruct. The damaged F-35s require parts that are manufactured in the United States and shipped to the UAE, a process that takes 6 to 8 weeks minimum. Optimistic estimate, the base returns to 50% operational capacity in 3 months. Full capability, 6 to 8 months. Iran can strike it again in 3 hours. The psychological impact on the 5,000 American personnel stationed at Dhafra cannot be quantified in damage assessments, but it's operationally significant. These are airmen, maintainers, intelligence analysts, and logistics personnel who went to sleep believing they were protected by the most advanced air defense systems in the world. They woke up to impacts, explosions, and the realization that the defenses failed. 17 missiles got through, 14 of their colleagues are dead. The calculus that made deployment to Dhafra a routine assignment just changed. Every airman on that base now understands they are in a combat zone where warning time is measured in minutes, and defensive systems cannot reliably protect them. Morale doesn't collapse immediately. It erodes with each day spent waiting for the next attack that air defenses probably won't stop. American officials are calling the attack a terrorist act, describing it as an unprovoked escalation, promising retaliation. The rhetoric is strong. The operational response is not. Because the uncomfortable reality that no official statement will acknowledge is that America does not have a good retaliatory option. Strike Iranian missile production facilities? Iran has dispersed manufacturing across dozens of sites, many of them underground. Strike Iranian missile storage sites? Iran stores missiles in hardened bunkers that require bunker-buster munitions delivered by aircraft that would have to penetrate Iranian air defenses that just received S-400 systems from Russia. Strike Iranian leadership targets? That's an escalation to decapitation strikes that risks Iranian retaliation against American cities using unconventional means. Every retaliatory option carries risks that outweigh the benefits, and Iran knows it. That's why they struck Dhafra. Not because they wanted to destroy the base, because they wanted to demonstrate that American forces in the Gulf are vulnerable, that host nations cannot be protected, and that the costs of retaliation exceed what the United States is willing to pay. The attack was a message. The message is that American military presence in the Middle East exists at Iranian discretion. Share this because mainstream media is showing you footage of fires and damage assessments. They're not showing you the cost-exchange ratios that make this sustainable for Iran and unsustainable for America. They're not showing you the diplomatic pressure Iran is applying to Gulf states to make hosting American forces politically untenable. They're not showing you the interceptor depletion rates that mean American air defenses cannot protect the bases they're deployed to defend. Both versions are true. Only one explains what happens next. The base is burning. The aircraft are destroyed. And the entire structure of American military presence in the Gulf just became negotiable in ways it hasn't been since 1991.